Hello, my beautiful friends. Welcome to Proper Madness. My name is Savvy, and I give a unique perspective on mental health by providing tools, guidance, and knowledge on how we can better understand ourselves, as well as our past and present experiences, and in doing so, we can help heal our mental health. I get to speak with a variety of individuals from around the world as they share their stories from their journey through their mental wellness so that it helps others stand strong and use their voice. Welcome back, everyone, to Proper Madness. Today, I'm joined by Ret Taylor. He is a wonderful person.
Yeah, well, thank you so much, Sabi, for having me, and real pleasure to be here. Yeah, I am a lot of things, but I guess most relevant is the co-founder and co-CEO of a business called Ned here in Boulder, Colorado. And Ned, our mission is to help people feel better and live better through a deeper connection to the natural world. And for us, that looks like creating some of the world's finest, some of the world's best, most effective natural remedies. So we really search the world for the best ingredients, and then we search the world again for the best producers of those ingredients. And we have an amazing formulation team that creates supplements and natural remedies such as tinctures and topicals, and all incredibly natural, all entirely organic. And that is very much the result of both my passion and that of my co-founder Adrian's, to a couple of things. One, to create a business that does good in the world. Adrian and I are both longtime entrepreneurs, and we were in some rather cutthroat industries and really didn't enjoy that. In fact, Adrian had a big burnout. Mine was a bit less dramatic, but everything just didn't feel right. And so, I would love to get into that with you and your listeners. But yeah, it's, Ned is very much the passion and the purpose. And yeah, I'm very fortunate to get to do that every day. It's a lot of hard work. It's not all like, my favorite days are meeting with our farmers and working out in the fields and wild harvesting wild mountain rose and calendula. Unfortunately, not all days are like that. They tend to be looking at spreadsheets and going over growth strategies. But yeah, it's a passion, and I'm very, very fortunate to be able to do this.
I think that's very beautiful to hear. I think a lot of people get stuck in jobs that they don't like, and that isn't a passion or a way to promote any sort of growth in the world with a higher purpose. So I think that's pretty amazing that you and Adrian both got to start that. Can I learn a little bit more about what inspired you both to get started on your journey in creating Ned?
Yeah, so for Adrian, Adrian had this really, he was really driven to create wealth for himself. He was driven to have the cool car, the cool leather jacket, the sweet bachelor pad, dates every night, like Rangers hockey tickets, and go on vacation where all the cool people went. And he lived that life, and he was very good at it for a decade or more in New York, London, LA. And for him, it ended in all of a sudden, out of nowhere. He was giving a presentation to his team of 75 people, something he had done many, many, many times. And he broke out in sweat. His mouth went dry. He had a panic attack in front of his team. And he had no idea where it came from. It was just, and he went home after that and was really like shocked and didn't know where that came from. It came out of nowhere. And then a couple of days later, he went in to meet with the board. He was the chairman of the board of this business. And the same thing happened again. And he could not function. And he essentially was let go almost immediately thereafter. He was supposed to be this hotshot, and he proved to be incredibly fallible in their eyes. And so, his option was to go find a psychologist and get on some prescription medication and get back to it. Or he could try to figure out what the cause was, what was the issue. And that was the route he took. And that journey took him, well, I would say the first phase took him 2.5 years. And he was very fortunate where he had a good severance package and he was able to take that time off and travel the world. And he went to all the ashrams and mountaintops, and he did a lot of exploration on what had happened and what it was. And what he did was he lived out of a backpack. And he really simplified things. So he turned his back on all the cool stuff in his bachelor pad and just lived out of a backpack for 2.5 years. And he started in Kathmandu and ended up in India and the Scandinavian countries, down in South America, et cetera, et cetera. And it was all about finding himself. And he really realized that what had happened was he had gotten really confused with what his purpose was. He thought it was to make a bunch of money, be cool, have the stuff that we're taught, that my generation is taught. I'm 40 years old. And you just work at a job that maybe you have no passion for, maybe you even resent. But it gives you those things. And so Adrian realized that was not his purpose, and it was tearing him down. And that's what led to his burnout. And he's been very, very public about this. He's written about it, been published about it. But he eventually found that through simplicity, through living out of a backpack, through living in a tent, and through connecting with nature, that he was really able to find out who he is and what's important to him. And in that vulnerability, he really was finally able to connect with people on a much deeper level. He was able to connect with people in a way that he wasn't before. And he was able to be honest and truthful and vulnerable with them. And I met Adrian when he was, he was in the thick of it. He was the cool guy with the leather jacket in the New York City, the coolest bar in New York City. And to know him now, 12 years later, it's a different person. And he has done a ton of work, and he continues to do a ton of work on himself. And I'm really incredibly proud of him for it. And I love who he has become.
Yeah, I want to know how you came into play too with that, how you guys met and did all that.
So my story is more about this disconnect that I feel and a lot of us feel with the natural world. I was born in a mountain town in Wyoming with 11 people in it. I was moved as a child and ended up growing up in some of the biggest cities in America. I then lived and worked in some of the biggest cities in the world, in the Middle East, South America, New York, Miami. And in all those cities, I would always gravitate toward the most natural places, whether it was Central Park or an abandoned lot or the outskirts of the desert. I would always try to spend as much time as possible in nature. And in 2008, I was living in New York City. I had been a competitive marathon runner. I'd spent a lot of time in the gym, just like doing curls and push-ups and pull-ups.
Yeah.
And I was so bored with it. And I started going to Central Park and just like running around in the most natural places I could. I was climbing trees. I was doing my push-ups in the grass, my pull-ups in tree branches, and started feeling much, much better. And it didn't take long before a few people started joining me. A few people turned into a lot of people, and a lot of people turned into a real lot of people.
Oh,
And
that's awesome.
like a few thousand people. And then the Wall Street Journal did an article on my crazy workout and trees and rocks. And then it turned into thousands and thousands of people, not all at once, but over the course of about 3 years, yeah, over 10,000 people came through, and I was able to work out with them in outdoors in nature. And they were all New Yorkers, but they were all from from rural areas around the world. They were missing nature. They were in the big city. They had either amazing lives or terrible lives. But they were focused on being there in New York at that time, but they missed that connection with nature. And it just was this like innate thing when we would get outside and roll around in the grass and just reconnect. So it was at that time that I started like doing some research on what it is about nature that made me and others feel better, feel more creative, more focused, energized, happier, healthier. And it was really cool because it was at a time when it was no longer just like anecdotal feelings, right? It was science-backed, research-based, actually look into the body through MRI and EKG and see what neurons and neurotransmitters and hormones are firing when we're outdoors and connected. And started to just like really truly geek out on the powers of the natural world. And yeah, I recognized it as just an amazing opportunity to help people find to feel better and live better. And so I ended up moving back to Colorado, primarily to be closer to nature. I grew up poor, like really, really poor in America. And I always thought it was money. I thought make money and be happy. And I made some money, not a crazy amount, but enough to know that it wasn't money that was going to make me happy or others happy. It definitely helps, but it's not everything. And yeah, I had a business that was very successful, but it was just like Adrian, it was driving me crazy. At a certain point, I just couldn't do it any longer. I was representing and working with hotel furniture, fixture, and equipment manufacturers.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Selling, carpet and lighting and sofas and fabrics, and like it was okay, but I just didn't care at all about the pile height of your carpet or the joints on your sofa. And so it was purely about making money. And at a certain point, I could no longer do it. I literally couldn't do that job any longer. Which was fortunate because I had also had an idea to create a business I could do, which was focused on natural remedies. It was focused on that connection with nature.
Yeah.
And that idea came to me after spending 40 days entirely outdoors, really kind of as like a healing. I had brought the furniture business to Saudi Arabia. I had been very successful there. but it was going to cost me my family, my wife and daughter, my new wife and brand new daughter. And so I closed the business, and kind of had to get out of there, and reconnect with not only with nature, but with my family.
Yeah.
So it took a couple of years. It was a healing period for me. And part of the healing was to go spend 40 days entirely outdoors. And my wife and daughter were in the Netherlands, where my wife's from, visiting family. And so I had this time in my life where I could just go. And our lease ran up on our house. I didn't renew another one for 2 months, and I was essentially homeless for 2 months, and it was the best 2 months of my life. It was the time when I really figured out what's important to me. And like Adrian did, I simplified. I lived out of my truck, and I brought very few things with me. I had a very connected life. I essentially, I was still working, but I was working outdoors. I had this whole setup where I could connect. Nobody knew I was away. And it was great. But at the end of it, I was finally able to articulate my purpose in life, which is to help people reconnect with nature.
Yeah.
And then wanted to create a business around it. At the same time, my mom had been diagnosed with breast cancer. She decided not to do chemo or radiation and was instead looking for natural remedies and looking to battle her cancer through nutrition. I took it upon myself to learn all I could about that, and really developed a passion for, and the beginnings of an expertise in natural remedies.
Yeah.
And yeah, wanted to combine the passion and the business, and really create a better company that would be focused on quality and transparency. A lot of the natural remedies, supplements businesses are completely intransparent. I wanted my business to be as transparent as possible. I need somebody who is a storyteller, who's a brand builder, who understands marketing and advertising. And I called on my good friend Adrian, who had just moved to Colorado after his 2.5-year soul search. And I say it's like one of the luckiest things that's ever happened to me is him being available to become a co-founder of Ned with me.
The similarities in both of your stories is just so wonderful, of when you both hit a point in your careers where you decided that the material world isn't actually as fulfilling as being with yourself and being in nature, right? I think a lot of people have a disconnect still with that. And for me, it was the same thing. Like, you need to make money, you need to have all these things to be happy. And that's not what happiness is. It's when you're out alone in nature or just with yourself, you can reconnect to yourself, because nature is just so healing, right? Our environment can be very healing. If you're around like fluorescent lights all the time, you're going to get really tired, little things like that. So I like hearing that, because I think a lot of people still think that the true key to happiness and your purpose is in the material and not in what actually sets your soul on fire.
I'm very fortunate. I have amazing friends, and a disproportionate number of them are like incredibly successful.
Yeah.
In terms of, if you want to call it from a monetary standpoint. And what they're all doing is simplifying. They're all, none of them are buying a yacht. They're like putting their Rolex in their closet and trading it in for a Timex. It's all about simplifying. And like, once you hit that, you realize that it's not about more. It's about less. And in fact, it's like the people I know, I won't talk about the people, I'll talk about myself.
Yeah.
I know how mentally sound I am by the cravings I have for consumption. So when I feel like, oh, I really want a new this or a new that, or oh, cool, that shirt is like, that would look great, like I really want to buy that shirt. I know that when I have those cravings, I'm I'm not in as good a place as I can be.
Mm.
When I'm feeling into like my best self, when I'm thriving, I have no desire to consume more.
Mm.
I am enough. I have enough. What I have is good enough. But when I'm, shaky on shaky ground, when I'm not confident, when I'm not in my best self, and it's
Yeah.
typically when I'm more disconnected from nature, um, I'm, I'm more of a consumer.
I was thinking about something similar last week, where when we are disconnected from ourselves and our environment and nature, right? Nature's where, but that's where we all are supposed to be. I think when the world evolved how it did wonderfully, it disconnected us from the natural world. Like every so often, I'll go outside barefoot when it's not cold, and just like ground myself because it's so easy to fall into those loops of consumption with everything, right? Social media, even food, alcohol, all the things. So I think you explained it so well. It's almost like filling that void of disconnection from yourself in a way.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. When I'm out backpacking or on a backcountry ski trip or a motorcycle adventure, I'm not thinking about consumption. I'm just
Mhm.
really just being present and enjoying.
Yeah.
And then other times when I feel fulfilled, when feel fulfilled through personal life, business life, and family life, I'm not thinking about it. Honestly, I went a long stretch last year without buying anything.
Yeah.
And then um, I realized toward the end of last year that I was tired. Like I was truly tired. We had some hurdles to overcome at the business,
Mhm.
um, at home. Um, in the winter, I just feel disconnected. I spend less time outdoors,
Yeah.
or I do so with too much clothes on. Um, and I don't. Camping and backpacking for me is a really big way of like ensuring I have positive energy.
Mm.
And so I do less of that during the winter. I still do some, but I found myself like buying more. And it was around Christmas time, and I kind of justified it like, I'll buy myself a couple Christmas presents, and then it
Yeah.
was a couple more, and then I realized that I was like looking forward to that package arriving, and and I mean we've all been there, and it's like part of our society now, but
Yeah.
I know, so that was a signal to me that I'm not in as good a state as I should be or as
Yeah.
I can be. There's no shoulds. I hate that word, but as good a state as I can be. And so I've been, it was kind of like a wake up call to double down on getting outside, um, getting sleep, um, doing the things. Oh, I had stopped my gratitude practice.
Oh wow. Yeah.
Yeah. And that was definitely a contributing factor.
But now I want to pick your brain a little bit on the holistic side of healing, right? And how that's interwoven with us mentally. So for you, what has been a key factor in keeping yourself in a more balanced state of ground besides going out in nature and like some of those natural remedies and
Yeah, well, sleep is the key.
yeah.
Like the foundation is there. Without good sleep, um, it's just an uphill battle. So I really, really work hard at getting great sleep.
Mhm.
Um, and I mean, it's the single most important thing we can do for our health. Um,
Yeah.
Not getting enough sleep takes years off your life. You don't perform as well. So yeah, I really focus in on sleep, that, my bedroom environment, it's like dialed in for good sleep. I get to bed at the right time. Usually I wake up every day at 5:40. And then sunlight is a big one. I try to
Mm.
get as much sunlight in my eyes, on my skin as possible.
Yeah.
And that also helps with sleep. Alcohol is a big one. I love beer. And I love having a beer after like a fun time outdoors
Mhm.
or at the end, on a Friday night or something. But it just really messes me up the next day, and I just
Yeah.
can't do it any longer. And so I've tried to get away from alcohol. It's like successful in spurts.
Yeah.
Then there's like a great reason. Like my best friend was in town last weekend and just had to have a few beers.
Yeah.
But it was like, all right, this is the trade-off. I know tomorrow is not going to be as good, but tonight's going to be great. So, but getting away from alcohol has been very, very helpful for me.
Mm.
And I'd love to say that it's like I'm never going to drink again, but that's not true. So
I've tried that. I tried not drinking for about, oh gosh, a year, not for any other, just because I wanted to see what would happen socially. I was like, I wonder if it's just a social thing as to why, I like drinking. And then eventually I realized, no, I think it is a social thing. I like to have fun every once in a while, but my sleep is shot the next day or
yeah,
that night. And then I'm not productive for like 2 or 3 days. As I've gotten older, it's gotten worse. It's just one
yeah,
night of no sleep can affect me for 3 or 4 days. I went
yep.
to the Joshua Tree over the weekend, had some wine, same thing. My sleep was okay, but I got sick. So it just like really shot me down. And yeah, same thing. I try not to because I don't like how I feel afterwards. I get anxiety. Yeah.
It's such a like an antiquated thing too. We have other things that can help us socially.
Mhm.
It's just this like force of habit. After a great day of skiing, you have a beer, or your best friend comes into town, you have a
Mhm.
beer. And then also I've lived in cities where it's like there really isn't much else to do once after you
Yeah.
visit all the museums and you don't want to go to another concert. It's like you meet for a drink, and I get that.
Mhm.
And um, and if you're the person who doesn't do that, yeah, the fear for me at least is that you just can't connect with people any longer. Uh,
Yeah.
and I have certain friendships that are really based around having a beer. And so I worry that those friendships would suffer. And I don't
Yeah.
know if it's worth it to me. But I'm also at a point too where it's like I'm a fucking man and I can do what I want. And my friends, if that's gonna ruin our friendship, then that's all right.
Yeah. Well, and then it's not really worth it in the long run. It's
Yeah.
like if they're just with you just because just because they want to drink with you, I feel like that's not. I've had to cut out quite a few people, unfortunately, just because of that. I got you guys can go party on the weekends. I'm kind of more focused on my life and what I want to do with it. I
Yeah,
don't
and
know. I can't do that anymore. So,
it's cool because I'm 10 years older than you.
mhm.
My generation, it was really about drinking. And
Yeah.
now, I'm in a college town here in Boulder, Colorado, and we work with younger people, and drinking is not as much a part of the culture as it was. Yeah, well, we have lots of other options here in Boulder, of the plant variety, which I'm a big
Yes.
proponent of.
No, I'm a very big advocate for that instead, because there's a lot of research that's been done on alcohol and how it affects your brain and your mind and your focus. They like took brain scans of someone who stopped cutting out alcohol for 2 years and compared it to someone who just casually drinks maybe once a week. And they found that the brain size of the human being that was drinking more regularly was a lot smaller than the person who just cut it out for a couple years. It's crazy. And even like the brain activity too, you could see all that. No, but sleep, I think people neglect sleep a lot because we're stuck in this hustle culture mindset still, unfortunately, of that you need to work really hard, not get a lot of sleep, and then you're gonna be a boss and kill your whatever assignment or goals that you have. And that's not true, because if you don't get enough sleep, then how the heck are you gonna
Yeah,
focus on what you need to? And then
yeah, likewise. Again, it's like the foundation is the number one thing we can do for our health.
yeah.
And so I guess it, it really, really starts there for me and really for most of us. Some people can do better with less,
Yeah.
but I just saw something the other day. It's like men need 6 to 8 hours of sleep, and women actually need 8 to 10 hours of sleep.
Yeah. I believe that actually. That makes sense. My brother and my father maybe only sleep about 6.5 hours, and they're fine. I need over 8 hours. If I ever get under, even 7.5, even if it's good quality sleep. I have an Aura ring, so I track
Mhm.
my sleep. Even if it's good quality sleep and it's under 8 hours, I'm still not completely functional the next day at all. Is there anything that you do in Ned specifically that you're very excited about right now that you're working on that you'd like to talk about? Something that kind of has sparked a new passion for you guys? Anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, everything's about passion
Yeah.
here. But yeah, one thing in particular, we launched just coming up on 2 months ago, we launched Shut Eye Chai.
Oh yeah.
Shut Eye Chai is part of our Mellow collection, which is magnesium focused.
Mhm.
And yeah, we worked on it for almost 10 months on the formula.
Oh
And,
wow.
and we created just an amazing um, nighttime formula ritual that is in line with our topic around sleep.
Yeah.
It's entirely focused on helping you get a good night's sleep. So to formulate, we looked at, magnesium is an amazing, an essential mineral that really helps with over 300 different functions in the body, but one is rest, relaxation, and sleep.
Mhm.
And so we started with magnesium glycinate, and then we included amino acids like GABA and L-theanine.
Mhm.
Uh, we included mushrooms, reishi and chaga, a number of different herbs and botanicals, Ayurvedic herbs like ashwagandha, dandelion roots, raspberry leaf. And then we flavored it chai. Like Adrian and I just love the flavor of a chai latte.
Yeah.
Uh, and honestly, like that's the reason we flavored it that way. Yeah, but then I was talking to a friend of mine who's a huge tea geek, and he was like, "Well, you know the story of masala chai, right?" And I was like, "No." And he said, "Well, it's amazing. It's an amazing story."
Mhm.
So there was a time for a long time when the only tea that was grown in the world was in China.
Mm.
And the British became very fond of their tea. And the Chinese started increasing the prices. And it eventually led to, long story, but it led to the Opium Wars.
Yeah.
Um, and the Opium Wars in China. So what the British did was they wanted to grow tea in a colony of theirs so that they could control it. So they said, let's get some tea and bring it to India, and we're going to grow tea in India. We're going to cut out the Chinese.
Mm.
So this botanist slash spy went to India and basically pretended he was a Chinese noble and rode around in one of those like boxes with four guys with sticks
Yes. Yeah.
with the curtains drawn, and they stole a bunch of tea plants, and they brought them to India, and they struggled to find the right climates and the right growing culture, et cetera, et cetera. But they finally were able to get some of these tea buds to grow in India.
Mm.
And then, fast forward years and years, like decades, they finally got some good strains, and they were creating tea in India. So it was really like the biggest intellectual property heist in the history of the world. Multi-billion dollar industry moved from one country to another.
Mm.
But then during the Great Depression, when the world was buying less and less tea, the tea companies in India wanted to sell more tea. And so they said, well, let's try to get all these Indians to buy tea. But what they did, instead of giving them or selling to them, quality tea, they would take the quality tea, ship it out of India, and then they would try to sell the leftover tea, literally the bottom of the barrel tea.
Yeah.
And that tea tasted terrible. And the Indians didn't like it, but the British were like really forcing it on them. And so what they started doing was adding some of the spices that grew in India and that they added already to their food. So they started adding cardamom and ginger, nutmeg, clove, anise, black pepper. And they started also adding milk and sugar. And this was like absolute heresy to the British. Tea is to be drunk this way. And so it also became like a way of like cultural rebellion against colonialism. And so Indians created their own cultural tea based on their cultural identity and the spices that grew in their country. And it spread to Nepal, and it spread to Pakistan and neighboring countries. And everywhere did chai differently based on what grew in the region.
Yeah.
And you might have more black pepper in the south, you might have more cardamom in the north. But it was just this like fascinating story that my buddy told me. And we said, Adrian and I were like, we got to go figure this out. We got to go like live this. So we went to India in November, and we spent 2 weeks in India and Nepal.
Oh, wow.
And we learned everything we could about masala chai, and just like really fell in love with tea culture in India, and just really proud to put out this product. Even more proud knowing the story behind it. And we also source a lot of our spices from India, Nepal. And so yeah, it's been out for 2 months now. It works. Like the reviews are amazing. People really love it. They're seeing their sleep improve dramatically and really loving the ritual at night. It's like a nice hot chai latte. Obviously there's no caffeine in it. But it's just like a really nice ritual before bed. So that's my new favorite product. I use it every single night. My wife uses it. I can actually tell when she doesn't use it. She's like waking me up at 4 a.m. and tossing and turning until 6:15.
Yeah.
And falls asleep for like 10 minutes and then has to get up. So yeah, that's my favorite. And it's just so well formulated too. And we honestly like spared no expense when it came to the formulation.
Yeah.
And we always source all of our ingredients directly from farmers. And so we're able to include a number of new ingredients and new farmers, and just really excited about that. So
that's awesome. Well, I'm Indian, so when you told me the whole history, I learned something kind of new. I was like, I love tea. I try to stay away from coffee for the most part, but I love tea, and I've tried the shut-eye chai, and I was really excited about it because as a woman from like families from India, I add cardamom and spice to like literally everything, even my normal tea, just to give it some more flavors. So when I was able to try it before bed, because I take magnesium for bed for like many reasons. One, for like workout recovery, and 2, for sleep, to recover so that I can work out the next day. And then for anxiety, it's helped my anxiety by miles. And I noticed that's a huge difference. If I don't take it for a couple days, my sleep is a little wonky. I'm like similar to your wife. I'm like tossing and turning a little bit. I'm getting up a little bit more in the middle of the night, and I don't feel as rested. And then the mind chatter will kind of come back for like a couple days. So I've stuck with it. I love it. I love the flavor. I love how it makes me feel before I go to bed, to have some sort of ritual to just decompress and reconnect to myself at the end of the day. So I'm excited about it. I love it. I can't get enough of it.
Good. I'm glad. And yeah, like I'm sure masala chai has been a part of your life from the time
I was born. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
I started this new series on my platform called Tea Time with Sabby, and I legitimately will have tea in my cup. And it's always chai or some form of black tea.
Yeah.
I'm obsessed with matcha, so that sometimes is in there, but no, tea's been a big proponent, even just culturally, in India. Like it's a way for people to come together and sit down and have a conversation, outside of drinking, but it's a very familial thing. I remember when I was growing up, that's the first thing my grandmother taught me how to do, um, was how to make a proper cup of chai.
Mm.
Her
Yeah.
reasoning behind it was like, this is something you have to know how to do if you get married. I was like, this is very old school, but sure. So, but it stuck with me the rest of my life. And anytime I have a sip of any sort of chai, it just kind of, I don't know how to describe it, just kind of brings me back to center. It makes me feel at home, as deep as that sounds. But those little things from our childhood stick with us later on in life. So, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And just ritual is such an important part of like
Mhm.
balance, back to your question about balance.
Yeah.
Um, I find, and I'm different than my wife is an abstract artist.
Oh, that's
I'm
awesome.
a businessman. So it's like we couldn't be more opposite.
Hmm.
And she loves chaos and clutter and routine, like really dampens her. Whereas I love routine. I love organization. I love, you know, things in their place. And so, yeah, really that balance is there.
Yeah, I think, well, you need balance to stay balanced. Because if you don't, if like last week for me was telltale, like everything was just out of order and completely chaotic. I'm great in thriving in chaos, but when that happens, I don't feel like I'm with myself. So I still have little moments, even when life is stressful, of okay, how can I have some form of a ritual that's going to keep me collected, grounded, and calm so that I'm able to be my best self in whatever way possible, right? I started cold exposure therapy, which has been fun. So that's a great way for me to get reconnected to myself. I have to stay present. I can't really think of anything else because I'm in cold water. I'm going, this is cold. So I don't have any other choice but to do that. So my rituals stem around any type of just staying present in any moment. So
Well, eventually you'll get to the point where your mind starts to drift while you're in the cold.
have you tried it? Have you tried cold exposure?
Yeah, I've
Mhm.
honestly been doing it since I was about 18.
Oh, what? Okay, well, I've a while to go.
I read a book about this like cool spy who used to take marine showers, they were called. But anyways, but yeah, love cold exposure. It's another thing that really helps me throughout my day. At this point, like the physical element of it isn't really why I'm there.
Yeah,
And I do it probably 6 days a week.
yeah,
Uh, there'll be months and months though where I'll do it 7 days a week. But it's less about the physical side for me at this point than it is about the mental. What I love about it is it's just an amazing like microcosm of stress,
yeah,
and it's really inconsequential stress. The cold is not going to hurt you,
hmm,
but breaking through those walls where your mind is saying, "Get out, get out, get out, get out, get
yeah,
out, get out," and saying no, and then that's one wall you break through,
yeah,
and then it'll happen again 10 seconds later, you break through it again. It just sets you up for, or it helps you practice
hmm,
resilience. It helps you practice keeping your cool, and when you're in traffic or somebody's upsetting you, it just, how it is to say, like, honk the horn, honk the horn, honk the
mm,
no, you know, or tell this person off, and you don't do it.
yeah.
Just it gives you control, it gives you freedom, and so I really love cold exposure for that.
Yeah, it's been key. It kind of goes back to what you were saying in the beginning. Those impulses of being reactive and almost wanting to consume in sort of the same way. So yeah, I found the same. If I haven't done cold exposure for a week, and I can tell because I was sick. So I did research. Do I go in if I have a cold? I'm like, I don't know if that's the best idea. So I just stuck with like saunas and doing hot therapy instead. But I noticed the difference 100%. I noticed like the impulses, and like, oh, okay, it's time to reconnect to self. So
Cold exposure. I've got a cattle trough, a tank
mm-hmm.
right outside my back door. It's cold here in Colorado, so
Yeah.
I actually have like a little heater that heats it just above freezing. So
Oh,
it's
nice.
around 34, 38 degrees.
Yeah.
And it's right after my morning workout. It's straight in there, anywhere from 3 to 9 minutes, and then hot shower, and then breakfast with the family, and then off to the Ned quarters.
If anyone has resonated with anything that you've talked about, what would be the advice that you would give them? What would you say?
Well, let's see. One could check out our website. We have amazing articles on a lot of what we've discussed, including sleep and cold therapy, our personal journeys, helping people in their own personal journeys. But yeah, we've got an amazing library of content on our blog.
Mm-hmm.
The website there is helloned.com, HELLONED.com. And then yeah, people should feel free to reach out to me personally if anything has resonated. I love connecting with people, and I'm more than happy to help. And I guess the best way there would be through Instagram, which is at I am ready. So I am RETTY.
Okay, that's awesome. Well, thank you. I appreciate you coming on. This is a lovely chat. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
We as a business, we like to show, not tell. But, sometimes it's important to be able to tell, and lots of gratitude to you as a storyteller.
Well, thank you. Yeah.
For the platform.
Thank you so much for listening, and remember, you have to go through the eye of the storm to see the clear horizon ahead. Thanks so much, guys, and I'll see you next week.